Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Ashley Richmond, and I will be presenting my dissertation proposal. My study focuses on mentorship, leadership, development, and the lived experiences of Black women in non denominational churches. This topic is deeply important to me, not only academically, but personally and professionally, because it sits at the intersection of leadership, faith, and equity. Today, I will walk you through the problem, the research guiding this study, and how it contributes to both scholarship and church practice. Black women have historically been the backbone of the church. They lead in teaching, organizing, mentoring, and sustaining ministry at multiple levels. In many ways, the daily functioning of the church depends on their leadership. However, despite these contributions, Black women remain underrepresented in formal senior leadership positions. This creates a noticeable gap between who is doing the work of leadership and who is recognized as a leader. Non denominational churches are especially important to study because they often operate with flexible structures. These churches emphasize spiritual calling over formal hierarchy, which can create opportunities, but it can also create inconsistency. Leadership in these spaces is often shaped by relationships, visibility, and informal processes rather than clearly defined pathways. As a result, leadership development can be uneven and access to opportunity is not always equitable. This study is grounded in understanding that tension between contribution and recognition, between calling and opportunity. The central problem this study addresses is that Black women in non denominational churches often experience limited access to structured mentorship and leadership development opportunities. While they are actively engaged in ministry and demonstrate leadership capacity, the systems that support leadership growth are often informal, inconsistent, or dependent upon proximity to power. Additionally, racialized gender bias, whether explicit or implicit, can shape how leadership is perceived, affirmed, and developed. The purpose of this study is to explore how Black women experience leadership development within these contexts, with a particular focus on mentorship, organizational structures, and leadership pathways. Ultimately, this study seeks to understand not just individual experiences, but the system that influence those experiences. The research questions guiding the study are designed to center the lived experiences of Black women while also examining the systems around them. The first question explores how Black women experience mentorship within non denominational churches, whether it exists, how it functions, and how it influences their leadership. The second question focuses on organizational structures, examining how church systems either support or limit leadership development. The third question addresses the role of race and gender, recognizing that leadership is not experienced in a vacuum, but is shaped by the broader social and cultural dynamics. Together, these questions allow this study to explore leadership for both an individual and systemic perspective. The literature consistently identifies mentorship as one of the most critical factors in leadership development. However, for Black women, mentorship is often inconsistent, informal, or not aligned with their lived experiences. Many Black women report having to navigate leadership pathways without clear guidance, relying instead on trial and error or peer support. Sponsorship, where leaders actively advocate for individuals, is even more impactful, but access to sponsorship is often limited. This creates a significant barrier because mentorship may develop skills, but sponsorship creates opportunity. From an adaptive leadership perspective, mentorship is not just a program, it is a relational, systemic process. If the system itself is inconsistent, mentorship will also be inconsistent. A defining feature of Black women's leadership is the integration of spirituality and calling. Leadership is often understood not as a position, but as a responsibility rooted in service, faith, and community. Black women frequently lead through informal roles, mentoring others, providing pastoral care, and supporting ministry operations. Yet, these contributions are not always formally recognized. Spirituality also serves as a source of resilience, helping leaders persist even when institutional recognition is lacking. However, this creates a critical gap in literature. While spirituality sustains leadership, it cannot replace structured development systems. There is limited research specifically examining how these dynamics play out in non-denominational churches, which is where this study contributes. This study is guided by three interconnected frameworks. First, leadership development theory helps explain how leadership develops over time through experience, mentorship, and identity formation. Second, womanist ecclesial leadership centers the experiences of Black women, recognizing that their leadership is shaped by the intersection of race, gender, and faith. Third, adaptive and complex adaptive systems theory explains how leadership emerges within dynamic relational systems. Together, these frameworks allow this study to examine leadership as developmental, spiritual, and systemic. This is important because it shifts the focus from individual limitations and toward organizational structures and relational dynamics. This study uses a qualitative research design to explore lived experiences in depth. The participants will be Black women actively serving in ministry roles within non-denominational churches, and some who have formerly been involved in non-denominational churches. A qualitative approach is appropriate because this study seeks to understand meaning, perception, and experience, not just measurable outcomes. Data will be collected through semi-structured interviews, allowing participants to share their experiences in their own words while still guiding the conversation around key themes. The data will be analyzed using thematic analysis, which involves identifying patterns and themes across participant responses. The analysis will focus on three main areas: mentorship, experiences, leadership pathways, and organizational barriers. Ethical considerations are a key part of this study. Participation will be voluntary, and confidentiality will be maintained throughout the research process. The goal is to create a space where participants feel safe sharing their experiences honestly and authentically. This study contributes to both scholarship and practice. Academically, it expands the conversation around leadership development by integrating womanist theory and adaptive systems thinking. Practically, it provides insight into how churches can move toward more intentional and equitable leadership development. The significance of this study lies in its ability to highlight the gap between spiritual calling and institutional opportunity. Ultimately, this research suggests that if the non denominational church is to remain relevant and sustainable, it must move from informal leadership recognition to intentional leadership development systems. These are a few of the key sources that informed this study, including work on leadership development, adaptive systems, and womanist theology. A full reference list is included in my dissertation document. I want to thank you for your time and attention to this matter, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.